Good evening, I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. News, nothing but news since the midterm election. I'm very pleased that Mary Kissel, my colleague and co-host and friend, could join me tonight. Mary is the host of WSJ.com's Opinion Journal each day at 1 p.m., as well as a member of the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal. So Mary knows completely, because she's in the news cycle, how you cannot spend any time at all with one story before we hop to the next. And Mary, I especially want to start tonight with a topic that you introduced probably about a year and a half ago. In fact, I'm going to be suspicious that you invented this topic, and now you're featuring it, as we all must, because there's a new member of the minority leadership in the United States Senate as of today. Admittedly, it's an invented role. It didn't exist before. It might not exist in future. Let's call it the Elizabeth Warren was invented by Mary Kissel chair of the Senate leadership.
It's our favorite American Indian, John.
Elizabeth Warren is the now senior senator from Massachusetts. I think I've got that right. And the fact is that she's now a member of the Senate minority leadership. She's much talked about and praised by the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, dominant these last months in the run-up to the midterm election because of complaints that the president wasn't and Elizabeth Warren was. And then there's Mrs. Clinton, who's seen as there's friction between Mrs. Clinton and the progressives in the Democratic Party. And now Elizabeth Warren is elevated. Mary, may I be suspicious? Does this have anything to do with 2016, or is the leadership in the Senate so exhausted by the midterm that it needed new blood? Good evening to you.
Hi, good evening, John. I think it has everything to do with 2016. In fact, I myself received an email from Elizabeth Warren today titled, quote, "I just spoke with Harry Reid." And she writes, "Hello, everyone. Harry Reid has asked me to serve as strategic policy advisor to the Democratic Policy and Communications Committee." In other words, John, she's been hired to spread the liberal gospel across America, and also to raise a lot of money for Democrats as they approach the presidential election.
And she will fulfill both roles admirably. She's very good on television. She enjoys media. She doesn't, these last years, to my knowledge, the senator from Massachusetts, doesn't much mix with the media. She keeps them at arm's length. I suspect that will now change.
Well, the friendly media she's fine with. She goes on Jon Stewart all the time. That's one of her favorite programs.
But she's now intimately emailing out admirers and supporters.
I'm not sure that she knows that she emails me, John.
I'll have to give her some money so I get these emails, Mary. I'm envious.
I did not give her money, John. I did not give her money.
The success here is Elizabeth Warren has started in the beginning, 2009, as a professor at the Harvard Law School, speaking to the financial mess, my memory, and she went on to explain some aspect of what would become the Consumer Board. That has a very fancy name. What is it?
Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
Yes. A part of the government that is completely unnecessary, as I recall.
And steeped in economic illiteracy, John. It's really quite amazing.
And the president was not happy about appointing Elizabeth Warren to lead that. And so the remedy was, I think Timothy Geithner, the Secretary of the Treasury, was specifically unhappy with Elizabeth Warren leading that. So the remedy was that she becomes a senator, but now she's presidential material, right?
Oh, for sure, John.
Right. And the question is, will she run with Mrs. Clinton on the field?
I think she will. I think she will.
I agree with you. We move on to a topic. Mary and I are pleased that after a year and a half, Elizabeth Warren is exactly where we always wanted her to be, which is in front of Mrs. Clinton. Although, I remind you, Mary, both Mrs. Clinton and Elizabeth Warren, Senator Warren, are my generation. These are exactly, these are flower children. That's what we're looking at
You're
here.
A flower child, John?
Well, no, that's a stretch. I'm associating myself with my
You're
colleagues.
You're usually in a three-piece suit and a bow tie every time I come to the studio.
No, it's a generation, a Pepsi generation. Okay, fine. Now we move to net neutrality. This week, it's a difficult term because the president has now endorsed it, and I think some of the major carriers have endorsed it. And you spoke to AEI this week? Is that who you spoke to?
That's correct,
all right.
Consultant.
AEI is not happy with the idea of the government regulating the internet. Why not, Mary?
Okay. Net neutrality, the pitch is that we must have the government set the prices and the terms of business for internet broadband providers, whether they're providing it through a cable or through wireless services. because, and this is the pitch, because those evil broadband providers, they might, for example, charge Netflix more than, say, other streaming services.
Right.
And that would be a bad thing, because that means that people wouldn't have equal access to the internet streaming it to you. What they don't say is that there's been enormous investment in broadband infrastructure, both in cable and in wireless. And you have to ask why. If there were monopolies in broadband internet, there would be no investment. There would be no reason for these companies to invest. In actuality, there's a lot of competition there. And it is rational for an internet provider to charge Netflix that accounts for literally 30% of internet traffic.
Right.
You have to charge them more for that. Now, are they going to charge so much that customers can't afford Netflix?
No, because there'll be competition immediately.
Of course they won't, because consumers would freak out and they'd say, absolutely not. We need our Netflix.
Let me tell you right
Netflix
now, Amazon Prime comes along and takes the Netflix model
Absolutely.
and makes it available to those of us who routinely buy used books on Amazon. Suddenly I can get Amazon Prime for free.
Right.
Whereas Netflix charges a monthly fee. That's the competition that comes when you try to overprice the consumer.
Right. Instead, President Obama is saying, let's use the excuse of imposing 1930s era regulation on the modern day internet under the guise of fairness. And what this will do is it will kill investment in broadband infrastructure. AT&T said that today.
Right.
Randall Stevenson said, the tens of billions of dollars I was about to spend, can't do that because I have no idea if this is going to be a wise investment in the future. It has real ramifications, John. It's really quite shocking, and I encourage everybody to go and read the editorials that we've put out about it.
Let me speak to what it looks like from Manhattan's point of view. There's one cable provider in Manhattan. In most instances, it's Time Warner's. Now, to be purchased, but in any event, you don't have competition because of the way the cable industry...
No, that's not true. I mean, you get it on your wireless. There are all sorts of ways
I'm talking about the cable box that originally came into your apartment. What's happened is that the internet has come up with a workaround, which is what you just said.
Exactly.
That's the nature of competition. Because cable would not give us choices, people have made choices. Now, there are other companies, Verizon, for example, carries telephone, internet, and television all together. They're competing directly with Cablevision, and you can play them off against each other.
Absolutely,
But the internet is now coming in and making it possible so that you don't need either of them.
Right.
The president is proposing to regulate all of this, correct?
He's proposing to have regulators tell Comcast and Verizon and AT&T what they can charge and the terms of their service. So if Netflix uses 30% of their pipe, they would have to go to the government and say, we want to charge X to Netflix. Imagine how long that will take, how inefficient it will be, how it will kill investment and ultimately reduce choice and raise prices for consumers. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible idea.
Mary's very articulate explanation. I bring it down to this. If you like your cable provider, you can keep your cable provider. That's what it means when you bring the government in. They lie to you, and nothing ever is the same. Mary, one more detail. Jonathan Gruber. That's enough, right? I mean, we're worn out with him. The puzzle.
No, I actually really like him. I'm glad. I applaud him. I'm glad he's out there telling the truth about how Obamacare was sold to the public.
The puzzle, though, is what is to be done, and I think those decisions haven't been made yet because I'm hearing from a number of people whether the Congress, the new Congress, the 114th Congress, will bring Gruber in and start oversight hearings and ask Gruber to testify before Congress in February, before King versus Burwell comes up for oral arguments at the Supreme Court. In any event, the puzzle, though, in addition to me, is that I'm learning there are videos, I think there are 4, there are probably going to be more now, dated from March of 2010, which is when the vote was made, and through 11, 12, and I don't know if there's one in 13, I'm not sure, Professor Gruber's been talking like this for years.
Yeah, he has been.
And he's thunderstruck now that he has to come on. I think he went on MSNBC to say it was inappropriate. But in any event, nobody was hiding Professor Gruber from anyone. This isn't like some major revelation. It's all of a sudden now hot story. Can we explain that? How he's been on video everywhere.
You have to applaud the citizen journalist who trawled through
I think
all
his
of
name is Weinstein.
Weinstein. Kudos to him for trawling through all of these videos and publicizing them. I think what's sad about Mr. Gruber's case is that he walked it back. He told the truth. He's on record all of these times explaining how, you know, we scored it a certain way, Obamacare and its costs for CBOs, so that they wouldn't expose what we were about to do. We didn't tell the American public who people would lose their health care. You know, why not just stand by your word and say, you know what, that's the truth? And instead, you know, this MIT economist, he's insulted the American people. He's caught on video, and he cowers in the corner. I mean, you know.
Mary Kissel, the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal and host of WSJ.com. Jonathan Gruber's coming back a lot. He'll be with us, and there'll be other voices like that. We're turning to New York City politics next because Mayor de Blasio is someone who Elizabeth Warren is very close to.
Ideologically.
Politically. And that is
spiritually.
Freshly a problem in New York City governance. I'm John Batchelor.